Good morning, everyone from ClearedJobs.Net. My name is Kathleen Smith, and I am the Chief Outreach Officer here at ClearedJobs.Net. I wanted to thank you all for joining us here this Monday morning. I'm joined by Bob Wheeler, who is on our staff. Bob, do you want to give us a little background on yourself?
Sure. Hey, everybody. Like she said, my name is Bob Wheeler. I've been with ClearedJobs.Net now for 5, almost 6 years. It's the only job I've had since I got out of the Navy. I did 20 years in the Navy, moved around quite a bit, did a lot of time with the Marine Corps as well during that time. But I retired in 2014. My last 3 years were as a recruiter. I recruited doctors, and that's how I got into working with ClearedJobs.Net. But since that time, I've continued to be a big advocate for veteran hiring and talking to veterans and writing about things and trying to connect that gap there between veterans and getting jobs.
Wonderful. And as some people know, ClearedJobs.Net is a veteran-owned firm. For the last 20 years, we have been doing TAP presentations, military job fair presentations. As Bob said, we've been doing lots of presentations at conferences around the country. And we felt that during this time, it would be helpful if we provided some quick tips every Monday morning to sort of keep your transition going. We're going to do this every 2 weeks. And I'm asked Bob to cover 2 points. So first, Bob, let's go over the first point about building and maintaining your professional network. How do you do it now in our current situation?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kathleen. And the reason I'm glad we're starting with this too is because everything that you do and when you're looking at getting your next career after the military, this is honestly the most important thing to do. And just like planting a garden, you can't just plant a seed of corn and hope to have corn tomorrow. You really got to build, and then you got to maintain your network, and that takes a lot of time. So this is a piece of advice that fits everybody. I mean, you should start thinking about your transition from the time you step on the yellow footprints at boot camp or start officer candidate school. So the typical ways to do this, you might already know. You want to go out and meet people and develop those relationships, but we certainly have got a different time right now. I want to point out that this is a great opportunity for doing this virtually because everybody's kind of working virtually right now. So, how do you do this? One of the ways to do this is to look around for people. I like to break down your network into 2 different pots. There's your geographic and then your industry. So if you know where you're going to be, where you plan on going, or if you got it narrowed down to like 2 or 3 places that you might be looking at retiring or getting out of the service at, you can look for some groups via LinkedIn, via other social media outlets that are focused on that area. You can look for groups of recruiters. You can look for groups of people, transitioning veterans. If you want to go someplace and there's a transitioning veteran group hosted by a close military base there, you want to join those types of groups from the geography standpoint. And then the second part is the industry part. And this one is great because if you're going to make that jump, you want to kind of marinate in the industry that you're going to be doing. So joining some of those industry groups on LinkedIn or on other social media outlets. And then when you do those things, participate in discussions, ask questions, comment on people. And nobody in that group is too unimportant for you to make a connection with. This could be somebody that's, everybody wants to make that connection with the hiring manager, the recruiter, the chief operating officer, all those types of positions. But don't discount, people who already work there. If you look on LinkedIn and they've got similar service backgrounds, reach out with a note and connect with them. Also, don't neglect other fellow job seekers because those connections, you've got something in common right now. People who are going to get out of the service in June, July, or August. And you know what? You're scared. You don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of stuff up in the air. Reach out and make connections with those people too. So then as you go forward, you continue to, check in with those folks, continue to add value because you don't just, building a network isn't just meeting somebody, it's connecting with them and then adding value.
One thing I wanted to add to that, Bob, especially in the current situation, and a lot of people are not able to go through TAP class or ACAP class together.
Yeah.
One thing you don't, and I know a lot of people network within that class because they're meeting with people for the first time and then they connect and move on together as sort of their graduating class. There's nothing that says you can't set up your own LinkedIn group of people who are transitioning at the same time you are, maybe from the same base that you're at. And it's just a way to keep up to date on what other inquiries or job opportunities people are looking for. Maybe invite some of the recruiters from the local area to participate in it. So you can create your own Facebook group or your own LinkedIn group. I would recommend it more being your own LinkedIn group and really keeping it very professional, because that is something else that you can do to say, these are things, I'm a leader, I take initiative, I follow through, I learned a new technology on how to set up a LinkedIn group and I followed through. Because a lot of people think that the LinkedIn groups are set up by LinkedIn. They're not. They're set up by volunteers within the community, and you have to manage it. And so if you want to have your own support network, you actually can create your own group for that. Bob, any follow-ups on building and maintaining your professional network? I think one thing that you said a really good point there about connecting and then participating in the groups. What I find is people will reach out to me, transitioning veterans will reach out to me, and they'll just say, this is my MOS, this is what I want to do. Do you have a job for me? And what I would like to remind people is the onus is on you to determine what the background is of the person you connect with. Are they a hiring manager? Are they a program manager? Are they a recruiter? Who are they? And be able to customize your conversation to them. I can't tell you how many times I get these emails and I realize that someone isn't paying attention to what my role is in the community. I'm an outreach officer. I'm not a hiring person. I am someone who could possibly connect you to somebody else. But don't reach out to me within an hour after connecting with me. You know, as Bob said, that this is like planting a garden. You really need to look at what are the next steps of cultivating this relationship. Bob, I know when you were transitioning, you participated in a lot of offline meetings. What were some of the sort of infrastructure that you used to build your network? How did you follow up? How often did you follow up?
Yeah, those are great questions. When I was getting out of the Navy, and my last 3 years when I was doing the recruiting gig up in Baltimore, I knew that I had already made the decision. I'm getting out at the end of this tour, and whether I got promoted or no matter what, I had already said, okay, I'm preparing myself to get out. And so my intention was to work in human resources, probably as a recruiter, which is not what I'm doing now, but that's what my thought was. So I joined some organizations, one of which was actually, Recruit Baltimore was the name of the particular organization. And they had quarterly meetings. This is back in the before days, back when you could have meetings with, large groups of people. But we're going to have those days again. And I went to those meetings. And not only did I go to those meetings and develop some relationships, but then when they had an annual conference every year. And it cost like $70 to go to this, conference. I was like, I want to be a good recruiter, so I want to learn how to be better at my job. So I would, and for 2 years in a row, I just took a day of leave because I didn't want the command to tell me I couldn't go. So I spent my day of leave. I paid my own $70. I got, dressed up in my professional attire, not my uniform, and I went out and I met people. And lo and behold, there's a long story to this, but I'll give you the spoiler alert. It was actually at one of those Recruit Baltimore's where I met Kathleen Smith, Chief Marketing Officer of ClearedJobs.Net, and she didn't have a job for me. Right? This is a great point. She didn't say, "Oh, Bob, you're awesome. I have a job for you," because she didn't have a job for me, and I still had a year and a half or 2 years left in the Navy. But we continued to be friendly. We continued to help each other out with things. And then lo and behold, when I did get out of the Navy in 2014, the company was ready to expand, and she was able to talk to the owner and say, hey, I think this is a good guy we should look at, and I've been here ever since. But that was something I was going to actually get back to. So this is a great story, Kathleen, because people are more likely to help you when you don't need a job right away. If you walk up to somebody to make a connection and you say, I'm getting out of the Marine Corps, I'm getting out of the Air Force, in June, and you told me that right now, people start thinking, oh my God, he wants a job. She's going to want a job, and I don't have a job. And now they feel bad, and they don't know what to say. No one wants to be in an uncomfortable situation. But if you walk up and say, I'm getting out of the Army in September, or I'm getting out of the Army next year, now people say, well, I just want to help. There's less pressure on the person you're talking to. They're more likely to help because they can help gradually. And that's how, those relationships, they exponentially beget other relationships and other opportunities. Mm-hmm. So I think one of the mistakes people make is they think, oh, I don't need to build my relationship because I'm not getting out yet, or I'm not sure I'm going to be getting out, or when I'm going to be getting out. So they ask the question, like, when should I start? You should always be starting, because people are more likely to help you when you don't have an urgent need for a job.
Mhm. So it's really great. I think that when I've spoken to transitioning veterans and they're like, I don't need to worry about this right now. I'm going to worry about it 6 months out. I'm going to worry about it 3 months out. And as Bob is saying, you're always networking. The moment that you start boot camp, you're always networking and always thinking about what is the next industry that you're going to be part of, and making sure that you're building connections within that industry as well. So we're going to go to our next point, which is timing. When do you apply? So this is something that we get asked a lot, and you will get many, many different questions, or excuse me, many different answers to this question. When do you start applying? You will get recruiters who will tell you something different. You'll have TAP officers tell you something different. And now, given our current situation, I'm sure there's a whole new series of questions. So Bob, you want to touch on applying and how do you start getting yourself into the application process?
Yeah, actually, and you know what? When we put together our points for this first webinar, Kathleen, I knew that these were the two topics we were going to want to cover. And initially, I almost wanted to lead with this topic because it's the question everybody asks first. But then I said, no, let's switch it, because networking is the first thing, even though people think this is the first thing. So we've already covered the networking. And actually, the better your network, the more you're going to know the answer to this question right here, when to apply, because it might be a little bit different by industry, by job, and by timing. Like we said, right now, this is a very crazy time. So if you wanted to know when you should best apply for positions, the more people you know in that area, the better you're going to be, because some government, especially in the government contracting world, some government contracts are hiring now, some are not, some are on a pause, So the question, I know that when people say, when should I apply? Let me go ahead and answer the question that you're actually asking, even though it's not the question you should have been asking. If you want to know when should you put an application in blindly because you saw some kind of an application posted on the internet that said, so-and-so is hiring for this, and you just want to put an application in, and when should you apply? I would say within 90 days, you could put something in there. And then the closer you get to your actual date, the more you can expect to be a viable candidate. If it's more than 90 days out, I wouldn't even expect to be a viable candidate, because the recruiters know that the reason they post those needs is because they have a need now. You're going to plant those seeds for the better jobs through your relationships earlier, but by the time somebody puts it on the website, they're hiring for something now. So you can think about it that way. But again, that's just the application, and unfortunately, people focus on that thinking that's what it takes to get a job, is they apply for the job and then they wait to hear, type things. So 3 months and after that, before you get out, is when you can start applying for those blind positions. But make no mistake, that's not the primary part of job seeking. So when you say, when should I apply? We're going to say, hey, you should be building your network. You should be talking to people, and the earlier the better. But at the same token, about 90 days out, you can say, no, I'm really in transition mode. I'm ready to listen to offers. I'm ready to discuss a specific role. And that's the way to look at it. When should you start discussing specific roles? About 90 days out. If somebody wants to talk to you sooner, more power to you. But that's going to happen because of your network, not because you just happen to show up and say, I'm looking for a job.
And Bob, as far as applying for a job, one thing that we notice a lot in our industry is that people spray and pray. Can you touch a little bit more on sort of the strategic way of applying for a job rather than just, spraying and praying?
Yeah. So spraying and praying is a horrible thing. Mostly because it leads to false hope, and you feel like you've done all this work, so therefore something should be happening, because you can list the 75 jobs you applied for 2 weeks ago and no one's gotten back to you. So the strategic thing is figuring out what does the position really require? What does it take to be successful? What does it take to stand out? Not just looking at the job description as it's listed, but if you can use your network that we talked about to talk to, maybe a recruiter or something, to say, what is it that's specifically a big part about this job, and what's going to make somebody successful? Your resume doesn't get you a job, and we'll talk about that in a future episode, I'm sure. But once you get that kind of into your head, the resume is designed to get you an interview. It's designed to make you intriguing enough that someone says, I'll invest part of my day to talk to you to find out more. So the more you understand about the job, the more you understand what they're looking for, the more you can tailor your resume to say, I meet these specific criteria, hard and soft skills, certifications and the ability to lead and manage, or the ability to get the work done. It's a balance of both those things, but it's got to be answering the questions that they're looking to ask.
Great point. So we have a few minutes. If anyone on the webinar has a question that they would like to ask either Bob or myself concerning transitioning, you're welcome to do that. I wanted to let everyone know that we'll be sending a follow-up survey probably later today, and I'd really like your input as to, did this meet your needs? Did the time meet your needs? What are some future topics you would like us to cover? Right now, we're going to be doing this every other week. We are considering doing it weekly. So, I would really like the community to help us build this that meets your needs. And one of the questions really is about networking. How big of a network do I really need to have?
Yeah, well, there's quality and there's quantity. I think it depends a little bit about the places you want to go and the things that you want to do. But I do think that it's important to find, you can have as big of a network as you want as far as people that you should never turn down meeting somebody or connecting with somebody. But you should pay attention to certain people who are connected. Man, I wish there was one of the Malcolm Gladwell books a while back that talked about different types of people. One of them was a maven, is what he called it, which was somebody who knew other people, somebody who was connected, and they enjoyed connecting people to other people. So looking for those people in the industry is kind of the key part. And I would also think about, not just looking at sheer numbers, but how many people do I have that I'm connected with that are at different levels of an organization? Like I said, you should be connected with some other job seekers, other transitioning veterans, but look for those people who are doing things and are active and thinking about what they're doing. Same deal. But if you you're going to stay in the location that you're in, if you're living in Tampa right now and you're going to stay in Tampa, you need to have a Tampa-centric network. If you are living in Tampa and you say, well, Tampa's maybe, but Northern Virginia maybe, but I'm also grew up in Pittsburgh and I'm looking there too, you're going to have to expand that a little bit and try to find some of the same types of people in every one of those locations. So I hope that, I know it doesn't answer the questions precisely, but it gives you some concepts to kind of apply.
Yes, because I think that we are all sort of charmed into thinking that we need to have 500 or 5,000 connections on LinkedIn. And it's really, as Bob said, quality over quantity. And how many people can you honestly network with? And networking, that's part of my job. It's a 2 or 3 hour a day, facilitation of discussing topics with people and following up with them. And there are people that I've known for 10, 15 years, and just now when they need some help, am I able to help them? So realize that not only is your network based on quality rather than quantity, it is something that you will have for the rest of your life. It is something that people will come in and out of your life, people will come in and out of your network, and you always have to be looking at ways to cultivate those relationships. There are some people who will completely fall off the radar and then they'll pop back up for some reason, and it's really great to be able to connect with them again. Well, I wanted to thank everyone for their time today. Thank you so much and have a really great day.